we're going to look at how we would go about factoring 3 terms. In class we worked on factoring 4 terms, and I explained that we needed to learn that before we could learn how to factor 3 terms. When we're factoring 3 terms, we're going to use a method that's known as the AC method. So if we start with 3 terms, a trinomial that is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And what I mean by this, in this form, our a is going to be just some number that's getting multiplied by x squared. So over in our example that's given in your notes, the a would equal 6, because 6 is what's getting multiplied by x squared. Over in our example, again, the b is the number that's getting multiplied by x, so in our example, b is going to be 11. And then c is the constant term that's out here with no x's, and that in our example is going to be negative 35. Now, in the last video, the one on multiplying 2 binomials together, I actually was using this very problem, and it was our solution, it was our answer when we multiplied those 2 together. And I did that on purpose so that we can look at, now we're trying to go the opposite direction. On the last problem, we wanted to take them when they were binomials, multiply them, and end up with a trinomial. But now we are needing to go the other direction. We're needing to start at this step and figure out how we can get from here to there. Well, when we're trying to go from here to there, the next step from here, the next step up, needed to have 4 terms. It needed to have this middle term split into 2 particular numbers that were going to help us to get there. And so the AC method is going to help us figure out what we need to split this into so that it will help us get to the answer. Because we can't just go randomly trying to guess what we want to split it into and expect that that's going to get us there the right way. So we have a system to help us figure out what that is. And that's what the AC method helps us to do. So let's look at how AC is going to help us find the right terms to put in the middle. So in the AC method, we are taking our A and our C and multiplying them together. So 6 times negative 35 gives us negative 210. We're putting that on the left-hand side of a table, and we're going to put B on the right-hand side. And we need to even notice what sign B has. All the signs are important to us. So what we're going to try and do now that we have this table, we are trying to, on this side, we're going to try and figure out 2 numbers that we can multiply together that will give us negative 210. The ones we want, the pair that we want is the pair that when we multiply them together we get negative 210, and when we add them together we get 11. So we're just going to try several combinations until we find one that works, but we can systematically get there if we just walk through one at a time, walk through possible factors of negative 210. Now, as far as the signs go, I said they were important. They are. We need to look at the sign that we're supposed to end up with when we multiply these 2 numbers together. Since we're supposed to get a negative number, that tells us that our 2 numbers have to have opposite signs. If they had the same sign, we would get a positive when we multiplied them together. 2 negatives, negative times negative gives you positive. Can't have the same sign. They're going to have opposite signs. So one of our numbers is going to be negative, one of them is going to be positive. The sign over here is going to help us decide whether our bigger number is positive or negative. Since this is positive, our bigger number is going to be positive like this. Every time it will work that way. Your bigger number is going to have the same sign as this. Okay? Smaller number depends on what sign this had, but bigger number will always match the sign over here. So now we can just go through and try, say, 2. Since this is an even number, 2 is going to go in here. So we can try negative 2 times 105. And so what you can do is take your calculator, say 210 divided by 2. That gives me 105. If you can't come up with that in your head, use your calculator. When you add those 2 together, you get 103. This is not 11, so this is not what we want. Let's try 3. Is 3 going to go in here? Well, I add these digits together and get a 3, and since 3 goes into 3, it'll go into those. So yeah, 3 goes in there, or just use your calculator. Negative 210 divided by 3. If it worked nicely, great. Use that try that number. So it was negative 3 times 70. Add those together and we get 67. We're getting closer to 11. 67 is closer than 103, but we're not there yet. So I just went through And for the sake of time, I've already tried all the way through until I came to a group that worked, a pair that worked. When I multiply negative 10 times 21, I get 11. I'm sorry, when I multiply them, I get negative 210, but when I add them, I get the positive 11 that I'm after. So I'm circling this group because it's the group I want to work with. Let me restate that. Negative 10 plus 21 gives me 11, which means I can take my middle term, my 11x. I can split it into negative 10x plus 21x because negative 10x plus 21x gives me 11x. So now I have found two terms that I can split this middle term into. So I'm going to rewrite this middle term. Instead of writing 11x, I'm going to write minus 10x plus 21x. So I've done that over here. If we look back at when we did this problem going the other way, you'll find that those are the two terms that are in the middle. They might not be in that same order, but quite frankly, it doesn't matter. When we're adding things together, it doesn't matter which one we add first. So that is what was supposed to be in the middle, was a negative 10x and a positive 21x was supposed to be in the middle. And just prove to you it's not going to matter that they're in a different order this time. From here, now that we have four terms, when we have four terms, we can factor by grouping. Here I've grouped the first two terms, and then I'm going to see what I can factor out of that. I can factor out a 2x, and so let me factor out 2x. That will give me 2x. 2x times what gives me 6x squared? Well, it's times 3x. 2x times what gives me negative 10x? Well, it's negative 5. Now we'll see what we can factor out of the purple group. We can factor out a 7, and when we do, we get 3x minus 5. At this point, if what's inside the two parentheses matches, we're in great shape. We're on our way to the answer, and we're practically there. If it doesn't match, you did something wrong somewhere, and you need to go back and look for your work, for your mistake. But it does match this time, so that means we can factor out that 3x minus 5. And so 3x minus 5 times the 2x plus 7 is what we get. And again, that's what we had started with over here. So it does get us to the right answer.